What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Indie Inkwell. My name is JJ. I'm one of your two hosts. Unfortunately, my co host Michael cannot make it today. He is dealing with a migraine issue, so we wish him a speedy recovery. But we do still have a great episode for you guys today. We have got indie comic book writer Michael. Is it Bellonis?
Bellonis.
Bellonis. Okay, I knew I was getting close, but I couldn't find anywhere where anybody had pronounced your name in like an interview or anything. So,
Yeah, no, I'm so used to that. It's okay.
well, how you doing, man? How's it going?
I am doing all right. Had a pretty good day today with getting new comics and everything, and it's super nice out, so I'm doing great.
Oh yeah, dude. For some reason, the weather it was like 50 something today
hmm
where I'm at. I don't know exactly where you're located at, but
Just down in Kentucky, just a couple hours away from you, I think.
okay, yeah, that's not very far. You're about 2 hour, 3 hour
hmm
drive tops. So first thing we like to do on every episode is kind of get the origin story of our guest. Every comic book character has a good origin story. We imagine that most comic book writers and artists have a good origin story. So, how did you first get into comic books? How did you first kind of become a geek, even if it wasn't comic books at first? Like, how did it kind of branch into that?
Yeah, man. I mean, growing up, I had the stepdad who was super into geeky things, so it's just kind of always been in my life, in one form or another. Like, of course, I had like Spider-Man the animated series and Batman the animated series, but also things like Star Wars, and I'd read a ton of books. So like Harry Potter growing up was great. Um, I didn't get into like comic books until like teenage years or so, and I'd read a lot of like Brian O'Malley kind of stuff,
Okay.
some of his graphic novels, and then would branch into like manga, so like Naruto and Bleach and all that good stuff.
So,
And
it
then I
wasn't
didn't
really a big Marvel DC kind of.
Yeah, yeah, not so much. Not until like after high school, that I actually get into like the big two stuff. First, it was like Civil War, whenever that event was going on.
Okay.
Got into that, and then no, sorry, not even the comic book event itself. No, the movie had came out, and then I was like, you know what, I want to go back and read Civil War, and then I would get into like Scott Snyder's Batman run.
Oh, yeah. From
Yeah.
New 52,
hmm
Court of the Owls. Yes.
Yeah.
So good.
So that's kind of like as soon as I read those two, I was like, okay, no, I see what I like here. I'm gonna dive in and just go all in.
So is that kind of like, was there any one particular thing that sparked it to where this is what I want to do? Or was it kind of just you got bored and somebody presented the idea to you? Because I have heard that too, that literally they had never even touched a comic book until they decided to write one.
Yeah,
Like,
no, so not necessarily. It's actually kind of really weird how it started. Because I mean, as an adult, it wasn't until much later. But when I was a kid and I was reading things like Diary of the Wimpy Kid and Captain Underpants, I would make my own little comic books and kind of like try to write and draw stories there. So it's
okay.
always kind of been in the DNA that I would eventually come to comics. Um, but throughout the course, and especially with the book we're here to talk about, like that it has been through so many iterations. It At one point I was drawing little cartoons for it. That didn't work so well, so eventually I tried to write a novel for it. That didn't work so well, and then eventually I was like, you know what? Actually, no, comics. Let's go back to the root and just do comics.
It seems to be a common thread. Like somebody will write a screenplay, but it doesn't really work for a screenplay, but it turns out to make a good comic book. Or
Yeah,
they'll start it as a novel and it's just too much. And they're like, well, this would actually be really cool if you could see everything. So let's make a comic for it. Why do
yeah.
you think that is such a common go to medium now for everybody?
I I'd imagine like just with how accessible it is, like images and words have always been rooted in human DNA.
Right.
Like since the early ages, we've always communicated through like images on a wall. So I don't know what it is about us, but just words stacked on top of pretty images, just always we're always drawn to it.
No, I guess that makes sense because I imagine the barrier to entry is a lot lower than for something like a comic book as to where if you're trying to make a movie or a TV show or something. I mean,
Oh, for sure. Like the amount of manpower and money it takes. Because like comics are expensive, but filmmaking is infinitely more so.
So you said that a big part of it was getting into manga and stuff too. Did you have
Mhm.
like favorite characters or any particular mangas that kind of really like influenced more of your writing style, or were those just purely entertainment for you?
Yeah, I don't think it was the manga side of things so much that has influenced, at least not this particular title. Because like I had favorite manga, but I wouldn't say they influenced the writing any. If anything, like Brian O'Malley's stuff, which is kind of manga related, I would imagine he was a big influence.
Sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought here.
Okay.
So before we get into the book itself, kind of walk us through how did you kind of get introduced to this team of people that you've got working on it? Because their work is, this is clearly not their first project
Yeah.
because it's just so clean and crisp. So kind of tell us how you kind of met everybody.
Well, so in this day and age, like it's so easy to get into contact with so many people with through just social media. And that's how I found each and every one of these people. It's just various like Facebook groups. I was in a big one called Connecting Comic Book Writers and Artists, which the whole goal is, hey, do you have a project you want to work on? Here's artists looking for work. And going through there and making connections. I wish I knew how to pronounce their names, but I honestly had never talked to them in person. But the letterer, um, he has worked on a lot of great books that have already been on Kickstarter, like Baby Barbarian. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Oh, okay.
I believe Marion the colorist had also worked on at least a cover for Baby Barbarian. So it's just kind of like this weird little sphere of like people who've already done great work through Kickstarter projects already. And
And
most
that
of them I didn't. Yep, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Most of them I didn't realize had like that connective tissue until afterwards. I'd seen their work and be like, oh, I love this. Oh, I love this. Oh, you guys also worked on Baby Barbarian? Awesome, cool.
Yeah, no, it seems to be something that happens a lot. Like, the comic book industry, especially the indie side of it, is a lot smaller than people
Yeah,
realize.
yeah.
Everybody seems to at least have some connection to everybody else through somebody or something. It's because I meet so many people like, "Oh, yeah, you had so and so on the show. I know them. I worked with them on this and this and back in the day and blah, blah, blah."
It's so awesome, so awesome. Like meeting new people in this sphere has been so great, and seeing who all knows each other is awesome. The artwork I had behind me here for another comic I did called Soccer. I just blanked on the name. Um,
Sorry, my brain completely
Soccer.
shut down a few minutes ago, so don't feel bad.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's cool. The artist for that one, his name is Fausto, and he again, not until like weeks into the project, I didn't realize, but he had also done a cover variant for Baby Barbarian as well, and it's a completely
Gee.
separate project. Had no idea.
No, but that's awesome because, like, before social media, can you imagine trying to gather a team of people to make something like this?
Yeah, that's why it'd be so hard to like break into comics at that early on, because if you don't already have the skill set, or if you don't already know people in it, like I mean, sure, conventions were a thing, so I'm sure going to conventions helped a
Right,
ton.
but I mean, also conventions weren't what they are now.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Now they're completely these huge things where 80,000 people show up, you know?
And
Like
like in every other city too, like you're always gonna find something no matter where you go.
oh, yeah, I went to, I think, 9 or 10 different ones last year. It was insane,
Crazy.
and it was all over the place. So like, have you done a lot of, like, networking at conventions? Like, is that another, like, route you would suggest people to go if you wanna meet other artists and writers?
I wish I could say that I've ever been to a convention in my life, but I have
Ah.
never been to a convention.
Oh, well, we gotta get you to a convention
I
because
know, I
I
know.
feel like this, especially this book, would sell gangbusters at a convention.
So that's my hope. I still have a few copies of Soccer left, of course, but I'm the game plan is, if Wendy does get hopefully funded within that 30 days and gets everything printed, I'll be heading out to some conventions this year.
Oh, that'll be awesome. I'll have to hunt you down and take a picture, do a video, say hi, see what's up, man. So kinda give us a, synopsis, and after you do that, we'll kinda play the trailer video for everybody, and then we
Ooh.
could kinda get into, like, the nitty-gritty, but what is Wendy and the Other Side?
Yeah. So Wendy on the other side. Oh, look at this cover. It's great works. Wendy on the other side is an all ages fantasy story, and it's centered around the main character, Wendy. She has just moved into a new home with her mother when she stumbles across this really weird hallway of portraits that were already in the home. And at the very end of this hall, there's this gigantic portrait of this weird other world. When she goes to it, she stumbles through, finds herself in the other side. And there she meets these three crazy little zombie creatures, Isaac, Zeb, and Carl. And hijinks ensue as they try to make their way off this island they find themselves on.
That's such a great little sales pitch, man. Like it sounds like something almost kind of a cross between what am I thinking of? It's almost like a cross between Chronicles of Narnia and like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, sure. I never thought of it that way, but I love that. It was definitely really, really inspired by things like Bone. Bone was one of the first kind of longer comic series I got into. So definitely the kind of that feeling.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and give everybody a real quick sneak peek at this trailer video. This is the trailer for Wendy and the Other Side. First of all, that music was a bop, bro. Good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, that one worked really well. I had spent hours finding just the right one. I was like, this is good. I like
Trust me,
this.
I know that pain. For every video I make, I have to sit there and hunt for an hour to find a good track of music for it.
Yeah, yeah. And it was weird looking through there as you were playing because I was like, I had already re-edited some of that footage for like reels and shorts and everything like that, and I had done some adjustments to it afterwards, and I was already noticing little things like, could have done this differently,
I
could have
do
done
that
that
all the time. I will rewatch that. I can't rewatch half my content
differently.
because if I do, I'll see stuff like, "Oh, I meant to make that do that, but I forgot to, and I meant to do
Yeah.
this," and you can't rewatch your stuff after you have that.
Oh,
And
it
see right
sucks.
there,
It
Mr.
sucks.
Fish, great video. So,
Oh, thank you,
I
thank
think
you.
you're doing just fine, man.
Appreciate it.
So kind of go into more of kind of how this comes about, who these kids are, and were any of the characters inspired by any real people? I'm always curious for that, especially with like an all ages comic, because it
Yeah.
kind of gives writers a little bit of leeway to put like some personalities they know in real life into it without offending anybody.
Sure, sure. I so actually none of the main cast of characters I think were based on any real people. But Wendy's mother, who you haven't seen yet in like the pages there, but Wendy's
Mhm.
mother is definitely based on my own mother. So shout out, mom, love you. Um,
Shout out to all moms. Moms are awesome.
so that's the only one though. Just kind of my mother's like spunky spirit and caffeine addiction kind of running through her. All those kind of things went into Wendy's mother for sure.
So what like inspired this story in particular? Because you said you've done other projects. So what was like the main inspiration for this one? Was it like Saturday morning cartoons? Was there like is this a story you had in your head for a long time, or is this something that just kind of came up one night?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, this story has gone through different iterations.
Right.
And I had so many different versions of the story that I lose track of everything so often with it. But like back when I was in high school, I started drawing little cartoons, and they were really, really influenced by things like Tim Burton, um, and just that weird kind of creepy, cute art style.
So like
Where the guy
Nightmare
did
Before
the
Christmas, Corpse Bride,
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah. And I definitely kind of pulled a bit of that influence into the current story itself with things like Coraline, just kind of
Okay,
going
yeah.
through the door to another reality type thing. Um, and then, like I mentioned, Bone. So I'm a huge fan of Bone and how it takes like this Lord of the Rings approach to kind of the Saturday morning cartoon style, where you start out super small and simple and cute and accessible to children, but you do slowly expand that into almost an epic fantasy type world. And you'll definitely see that here in Wendy as the story continues. But I was also hugely influenced by things like series of unfortunate events.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I love the kind of quirky, almost not quite dark, but I mean, definitely dark for children, writing.
Right, more like
Um,
gothic dark rather than
yeah,
like scary dark.
yes, but the thing that I would like to point out with that influence is just how I like to sprinkle little hints of things to come through the story, and you won't really know they're hints until much later on. But there's gonna be little details and panels here and there that at least I will know. Like that'll be important later. Don't worry. You don't have any idea right now, but you'll find out.
No, I love it. Sorry, my computer is glitching up on me right now.
I forgive you.
Bear with me, everybody. My computer's having a panic attack. Give me one moment here. Okay, there we go. Because that wasn't even supposed to come up there yet. All right, back to my questions. So, what is there anything that you're reading right now, or any other writers right now that you try to kind of not necessarily emulate, but kind of draw from?
With this story in particular, I don't know offhand. Like as always, Tynion is just going to be influencing my writing nonstop in whatever way
I
possible.
think Tiny is going
He's
to be influencing
fantastic.
everybody for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah, exactly. There's no like with as many books as he has in the stands, there's no way you cannot just kind of pull something from him. But as far as like Wendy specifically goes, I don't think there's a particular writer right now I'm reading that's influencing it.
Now, talk about the art style. Was that something you guys spoke about beforehand, or did you give the artist just the kind of free reign over it?
Kind of free reign, but I knew going into it what styles Francisco had to offer. I was looking for a very specific tone with this, and I mean he nailed it off the bat. Really, like I did show him my previous designs for these characters and said like this is kind of what I imagined them to be, but Francisco, you're the artist. Take it, run with it, do what you want with it, as long as these kind of characteristics are there. And he nailed it. There was really no back and forth with it. He was so great about it, just off the bat.
That's always so nice because, like, I have heard a couple horror stories where it was a battle the entire time getting the thing made, and they don't want to work with the artist anymore,
Yeah,
or
no,
vice versa. The artist doesn't want to work with the writer anymore.
I think the absolute only like, and this is not like a shortening him by any means, but there were
Right.
just like the first draft of the characters. They were a bit like a little bit older than what I was expecting, and I was like, hey, can we just like age them down a bit? They're like super small children, and then the very next draft, just like out of the park. Like there we go, perfect.
Yeah, because I'm assuming these characters are roughly around like 10 to 13.
Roughly, yeah. There's no specific age, but young kids.
Right. No, but that's awesome. And why a kids comic? Was that something you really wanted to focus on?
Heavily, yeah. So I'm a big supporter of getting children into reading. That's kind of always been a part of me. When I was younger, in like elementary school, middle school, I would often be tasked to like kind of help out special needs children with reading,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of helping them to learn to read and picking out stories that would suit them. And so it's always just been a massive love of mine of helping children to read. And then like learning the world of reading and how there's so many different types of stories you can get that'll interest you. And so yeah, no, writing all ages stuff has always been a big dream of mine. That's definitely what I want to focus on a lot.
Because I think there's a severe lack of it. Like
There
there's this big
is,
misconception about comic books, especially the big two, the superhero comics, is that they're made for kids. When
yeah,
really, if you open up even Spider-Man,
yeah.
there's blood, there's sex, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And then you
I
like you
mean, they're
try to
not showing
find.
nudity or nothing in most of those, but
Sure, but like
it's
it's definitely not for children, and we experienced that recently where we were trying to get a book for a kid, and they were going to like the just the regular superhero sections. We were like, maybe not here. Let's just not do this side at all. We'll go to this tiny children's section over here on the corner, try to find something for you.
right. And that the kids sections at comic shops are so small,
So
and they
small, so
have like
small.
the same 10 series over there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, you
It's
can
like
find like
Scooby
Lilo
Doo,
and
Looney
Stitch and
Tunes,
Sonic. Yeah,
Sonic, My Little Pony, and like a couple others,
exactly.
but they're still from all the big companies.
Yeah, and especially with titles like that, like unless a kid already has an interest in that, if they have any kind of preconceived notions to those books, those titles, then like they're just not going to be interested. They're not going to want to grab it. There's nothing new to catch their attention.
Right, especially like properties like Sonic that have been around since the 80s or My
Yeah,
Little Pony that have been around since I don't even know how long.
yeah.
Like
And then you go on Kickstarter, and it's virtually non-existent.
you've gotta really search for it and you're gonna be scrolling for a while.
Yeah,
Like, I don't
yeah.
know
It's
why there's such a huge amount of not safe for work content. That's the only way I can say it on YouTube without getting flagged for it. But it's just so much of it.
there's so much, and it blows my mind how often, and like this is not to knock those writers or artists by any means, but like how much of it gets so overfunded constantly. I
Oh
didn't
my
realize there was such
gosh.
a
I'll see
massive
something with like a
market.
$5,000 goal and it'll have like $200,000
Yeah,
pledged to it. I'm like, how? The
crazy,
story
crazy.
can't be that good.
Can't be. It cannot be what people are going for, right?
I mean, no
There's
offense
no
to
way.
anybody making those books. I know there's a market for them,
Yeah,
but
it's just mind blowing.
it is insane. And,
Kudos to them,
parents
and
always want their kids to get off the screens and, they want them to learn more. Well, comic books are reading too.
yeah. But then those parents would go to Kickstarter and try to find something for the kid.
Exactly. That's why I really like that we've had quite a few all ages creators come on the
Mhm.
show because I want like this show is meant to be welcoming to everybody. And
Yeah,
there's a huge amount of horror and there's a huge amount of not safe for work content out there. And we try to find as much other as we can.
for sure. And don't get me wrong, like I want to go down different avenues and write like horror or action or those types of things.
Oh yeah, and there's nothing wrong. We've had plenty of horror on the
Yeah,
show.
yeah, but I
But
definitely think that the market for kids needs to be expanded.
because it's there.
Mhm.
I mean, they act like kids won't get their parents to go buy them a $4 comic book.
Well, and like so with things like the cinematic universes going on, so many kids are so much more interested in comic books than they would have been like 10 years ago. But then you go to the shelves and you can't find something that's suited for kids, and that's crazy.
No, they have like a few alternative titles of like they have like Spidey Friends or there's a
Mhm.
couple other ones with Batman and Robin and Friends or something like that. Like, but they come out like once every 7 months.
Yeah, but what I'd have imagine is that with the way that kids' brains kind of operate, like you see Spider-Man and you want to read Spider-Man, but you can't because it's too adult. But then you look at this other title that's like, oh, it's Spidey and his amazing friends. But in that kid's brain, they know, no, that's for kids. I don't want to read that.
Yeah, it's like if that's a different Spider-Man. I want the
Yeah.
real Spider-Man, like
So that's tough. That's tough. But that market needs something.
well, and I think something like this is great because, it's not a big violent book. There's not, I mean, it's clearly marketed towards kids, but it also looks like something that a parent won't want to strangle themselves while trying to read to their kid if they can't read yet.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely what I go for. Hence, like not describing it as a kids comic, but an all ages comic. It's
Yeah.
definitely something I would pick up and read, um, which I think should be the goal of any writer, obviously. But I don't make it. I don't talk down the children because that's super
Hmm.
icky. So my writing
Especially in
is,
2024
yeah,
when these kids are exposed to way more than we were as kids.
exactly, exactly. Kids are super bright, so much brighter than what we give them credit for. So like, there's no reason to make it dumbed down or anything like that.
Hmm.
So it's definitely like if you're an adult looking for this fun fantasy adventure, like you'll be able to pick this up and enjoy it, no problem.
And that's another like misconception I think that's out there is when people hear all ages, they assume for kids.
Right.
And it's like, no, if you see all ages, that's what it means. All
Literally all
ages.
ages. Yes, yes. So a kid can read it, and a kid will have fun reading it, but you can also have fun reading it.
And then you also said that this was an all ages fantasy, but
Hmm.
I don't see like elves and every like the high fantasy stuff. So this is what would you call this brand of fantasy in this book?
That is a good question. I don't think I have a name for the type of fantasy it is.
Because everybody
It's
loves to put everything in a group nowadays. So
yeah. I wish I would know what kind of description to give that. There's definitely going to be other like fantasy creatures later on in the story, but nothing that's been established. So sort of just things from my own brain of like, yeah, this is a weird thing to put in here. Let's do that.
right.
Like zombies are about the only actual like named creature that's going to be in there.
And is that at this point, is that even really a fantasy creature anymore?
It's whatever. But
I
I'm
feel
calling
like
it
that could fit
fantasy.
into a lot of genres at this point
Yeah,
because everything has tried to turn itself into a zombie movie or a zombie book.
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I, I honestly don't have any kind of a brand for you here. It's just fantasy.
Hey, that's perfectly fine though. Not everything needs a huge, definitive label on it.
Yeah, but you are right. There's not going to be any kind of like high fantasy concepts there. So there's not going to be elves. I don't think there's going to be dwarves, stuff like that. It's going to be just own original creations. So you're going to see a lot of new fantasy creatures.
And see, that's another thing I like is because when a lot of people say fantasy or even think their thing is a fantasy, that's what you end up seeing. There's a lot of elves, a lot of
Mm,
dwarves, a lot of, and I love that stuff. But not everything has to be Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
and not
exactly.
everything has to be, slaughter, slaughter, kill, kill, death, death, death all the time. Like,
Not going to find that here.
no, I think that's refreshing for comic book fans, especially if you're a parent. This is definitely something that you can pick up and have fun with. Do you have any like advice for first time writers or first time artists trying to get into the comic book industry?
I wish I had advice for artists, but none. You're doing great. You do you. As far as writers go, like the best advice I've ever found is just to do the darn thing. So many of your dreams can happen if you just sit down and finish the project that you're doing. Nothing can happen if you have a half finished script. It doesn't matter how bad that half finished script is or how bad it will be when it's done, but like at least it's done and you have something to work with and you can rework it if you need to. But if you never finish it, you've got nowhere to go.
Do you think that people try to rush it out too fast too?
I would imagine that's the case. Yeah, I have definitely seen projects that could have used a few read throughs and known that there was something more you could do with it. And that's not a bad thing. Like you're putting out work, and that's great. You'll learn
Hey,
from your
repetition's the
mistakes.
name of the game at
Yeah,
the end of the day with anything. So,
for
but
sure.
I've been sent things even where it's like, hey, we've got this Kickstarter campaign getting ready to launch, and they send me everything from the campaign, and it's literally just concept art.
Yeah, yeah, for
And I'm
sure.
like, dude, I can't help you market this. Like,
that
there's nothing here yet.
always it always kills me too, because there'll be such great ideas, but I'll look at a
Yeah, I've
page and be
heard
like, I
so many
don't.
great ideas, but there's nothing substantial behind it yet.
Yeah, and then like I feel bad, but like I don't want to back it because like I don't know what this is yet. It seems like it could be cool, but we're not there yet.
Or, you'll go to back something on Kickstarter and you're not even sure if you're gonna ever see the thing.
So a super like weird thing I have noticed, and I don't know if this is just my brain that doesn't like this, but I have seen a few times where a product will be done, or like, rather, the Kickstarter will be funded. The book is not out yet. It's still got, months to go to get drawn and printed or whatever. And then the Kickstarter for the next issue will already be up. I'm like, I haven't even read the first book yet.
Yeah, that's weird.
I have
Why
no
do you think
idea.
people do that?
I mean, I would imagine it's to keep momentum rolling, and like that makes sense if it works. And if it's working, great. But I don't want to back the second one because I don't know if I like the first one yet.
Right. That's so weird. It's like you're literally gambling at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And like again, if it works, it works. Keep doing you. But like I
Right.
couldn't I could never do that myself.
No, I mean, I don't even like backing things that only have one issue.
Yeah, for sure.
Like sometimes because I'm not convinced it's going to go on to a second issue every time.
Yeah.
With other things, I'll look at it like this, for example, like Wendy, and it looks like a professional, polished product. Like this is not something done by people who rushed it out.
For sure. A lot of love was put into every corner of these pages, and I
Even the
appreciate.
coloring is fantastic.
Oh, she's so good. She's so good. And I love what the letterer did with matching the color of like the different characters. That just makes it feel
Oh
so much
yeah, I
so
hadn't even
fun.
noticed that.
Oh, it's such a great detail. And like again, I appreciate the art team so much for this book because it just brings to life all of this, and there's so much love in every single little piece of these pages.
And you can tell when people are just hired help
Hmm.
and when they actually care about the project.
When they care about it, yeah. And I truly believe that part of the reason this has resonated so much with everybody working on it is that it's all ages. That I feel like that brings out the fire more than just another generic action title that no love is really put into. So like if no love is coming from the source itself, then like what love are they going to put into it? It's just another job. But
Yeah,
something
I can
like
imagine it's
this,
harder to get passionate about, another superhero
yeah,
or another, vampire book or whatever it is.
yeah. And again, like no knocking on those creatives.
No, because
I'm
I
sure.
love all that stuff too,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of it.
yeah, for sure. But I do think too that like you said, how each part of the art does look professional and does look super clean. That is another bit of advice for like writers looking for artists is don't just hop on the first person you see that's selling themselves like $20 a page.
Hmm.
I know they want a job, but like make sure that the art is truly what you want it to be. Don't
Not
just
just
go for
what's
that first
cheap.
person. Yeah. And it sucks that it has to be so expensive, kind of. It doesn't suck because you're paying an artist, their living wage. But
Oh, I
like,
mean, if it was me trying to draw some of this stuff, it would take me literally a year to get one frame done. I'm
yeah,
not a visual
exactly.
artist. Like,
Oh, and Francisco will pump out line work within like a week for a page. It's sometimes less than that, and it still looks so great just off the bat. Not even a week later, it's insane. He blows me away.
wow, but $20 a page, really? I don't think I've ever even heard of something that cheap.
There are definitely people doing that, and again, like you, no offense to them, I know they're working their butts off to write or to draw, but like the $20 a page, you get what you pay for. Um, and if you want somebody who is going to be professional and who does produce actual work that can be readable, you're going to have to put more money into it, and that's just kind of the way of things.
Yeah, no, I mean, that goes with anything, I think, is you get what you pay for. Because God, I'm just trying to picture what $20 a page looks like.
I mean, browse through some comic book or Facebook groups. You'll definitely see some.
I have to do some more scrolling in the ones I'm in because I've never personally seen that. I'll have to do some research and hunt for that. That blew my mind. Wow. Okay. Because I think the cheapest I ever saw somebody charging was 75 a page.
Yeah, and that's a honestly a good price.
Oh, so that
But
seemed like a pretty fair price for their
yeah,
quality of artwork that they were showcasing as well. I mean, it seemed like they were almost undercharging themselves, really.
yeah, for sure. There's an artist I've been looking at recently for a horror comic I'm working on, and they're charging $110 a page, but for inks and colors. And like their
Ah,
work
okay.
is phenomenal, and um, like I would definitely I 100% want to hire them for this work, but also like 110, dude, charge way more than that. Like the
Right.
work's
But then at the same
exceptional.
time, it's like, don't charge way more
But
than that
also,
because I
yeah,
can't afford you.
I want to afford you. So also, no, you're good.
And that's a fine line, right? Because as an artist or a writer, if you're getting hired for to work on someone else's project that they want to create, it's you want to do the work because you want the reps, you want, the portfolio,
Hmm.
but you also need to make money. So
Yeah,
how
I'm
do you
sure
go
that's
about
really.
finding that little balance there?
I wish I could answer that question, but I am no artist. But yeah, that is a tricky line to walk because you do want people to be able to afford you so you can get work. But if you're not being able to eat at the end of the day, is it worth it? Like I don't know. That's strange.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would even operate. So, do you have like a favorite part of the creation process? Or do you have a least favorite part of the creation process? There's so like in the process of getting a book done, you get to one part of the process and you're just like, oh God, I don't want to do this. Like
Do you mean in terms of just the writing or putting the whole book together?
either or
Either or.
both.
Um, so let's go with both. Let's go with both. In terms of writing, my favorite part is conceptualizing like just kind of the general plot outline, like what I know I want to happen throughout the issue. But then the least favorite is actually getting the details of like the middle of the book. Because you always know how to start the book, you always know how to end the book, you know where you
It's just
begin, where you're
getting from
going.
A to B.
A to B is so difficult for like the first few goes because you're just staring at that page like, okay, what's page 10? No idea. We'll get there. I have no idea. And that drives me insane.
How do you go
Um,
about kind of getting yourself out of that? Like if you find yourself stuck like that for a couple days or something,
Reading, for sure.
reading.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm working on a horror comic, and um, I had like dropped the project for a while and was not working on it, and then I picked up Junji Ito's Uzumaki for the first time.
Mm.
And as I was reading that, everything just clicked, and I was like, "Oh, I know what I want to do. Let's do this." So
Oh,
it's
that's
it's so great. So
awesome.
yeah, reading for sure is just like that fuel that you need. Sometimes, even if you're not pulling like a direct thing from it, it's just the way you see they handle a concept just going through it that can just be what you need.
And then what about like your actual writing process? Like, do you have to like lock yourself away and like set the lighting a certain way and put music in the background? Or are you just kind of, you can sit down wherever you are if you have an idea pop in your head and you can write out half a script?
Yeah, no, I can sit down wherever I am. I think that part of that is just the ADHD in my brain,
Join the club.
because it doesn't. It for the most part, like if I'm hyper fixated, it doesn't matter what you're gonna do in the background. I
Mhm.
will not notice a thing you're doing. So like I can do whatever whenever.
That because I always like that question because like when I was at GalaxyCon last year, I was hosting a bunch of panels, and that was one of the questions I asked everybody because everybody had a different answer.
Mhm.
Where like Simon Bisley's answer involved absinthe, which just took me completely off guard because we
Interesting.
were we were having a pretty you know, it was a Lobo and Deadpool conversation with a bunch of
Yeah,
the creators from those books, but I wasn't expecting that to be one of the first things said.
that's definitely an off the wall one that I probably wouldn't do myself, but like if it
Right. No,
works.
I wouldn't recommend that for anybody watching or listening, but you know, I guess that's Simon's truth, you know?
Yeah, who am I to question him, right?
Right. Hey, he gave us some of the best Lobo books. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So like, hey, you do you, man.
yeah, for sure. Whatever your process is. So is there, before we let you go, because I know it's getting a little bit late. Normally my co-host is here and he usually has extra questions that I didn't come up with, and he's not here today. So is there anything else you would like to plug before I kind of let you go and get on with your evening tonight?
Not necessarily. I mean, Wendy's like the big push. So if you haven't gone to that
When
pre-launch
does that
page,
Kickstarter launch?
March 1st, March 1st. So as long go to that pre-launch page, which I assume is that thing right there. Awesome.
Yep, there's
Um,
also going to be a link down in the description below.
Head on over there. There's gonna be a little notified button. Click that so you can get notified. All the support we can get before the Kickstarter launches is awesome. If you want to read like more about the Kickstarter itself, like the concept of Wendy, and see some pages and stuff, you can head on to the site, michaelbeloniscomics.com.
Which you can find at this QR code on the screen right here. Also, a link
Awesome.
down in the description below this video. Or if you're listening to the audio only version, there is still all the links down in the description of the episode.
Yeah, so on that site, you can also find a free 6-page comic book Sakura right there. All you gotta do is go to
Hey,
that site and you can get a free download for that.
free comics. You cannot ask for better than that.
But I think that's about it. Wendy's coming out March 1st. I've got other projects, down the line, but those aren't going to be for some months after Wendy at least.
So you're not one of the creators that likes to work on 20 things at once.
Oh no, I'm working on 20 things at once. I just can't
Okay.
afford 20 things at once necessarily. I've already got art for I think like 3 other projects, pretty much done. But I'm gonna wait to like pump those out and like actually talk about those more until after Wendy.
Right. Well, awesome. We'll have to have you back on the show to showcase some of that stuff and actually have my co-host Michael on here to
Yeah,
double up the questions for you next time.
I
Because
would love that. I would love that.
it doesn't, even no matter how much we communicate, we could talk to each other for an hour before the thing. We'll each come up with questions the other one wouldn't even think of.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would imagine. But I would love to be on some of the time. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Oh, not a problem, dude. Like I tell everybody, if nobody comes on the show, we don't have a show. We need people to come on the show and talk. So
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to take a second, real quick, to just thank you for what you are doing. It's
oh,
been so frustrating over the years seeing so little attention to actual comic creators. If you're not like an artist for Batman, there's
right.
little to no attention. So, like, I really appreciate what you guys do here. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, personally, me, I can't speak on Michael's behalf, but for me, I literally, it was just, I was getting sick of all the superheroes.
Hmm.
If nothing, you can call it superhero fatigue, you can call it whatever you want, but it's just, there's 14 Spider-Man books, there's 12 Batman books, there's 5 Superman books, there's 12 Avengers books and 15 X-Men books, and it's too much.
So little of my pool lists are actually comic book or superhero oriented. Um,
Mine is
just about
basically
every single week.
0 at this
Yeah,
point.
I,
Like,
I
it's
think
all indie stuff.
I still have Batman because it's Batman, but besides that, like it's all indie every single week.
Yeah, but that's a whole other conversation for that. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you, Michael, for coming on the show. If you guys want to help support the show and help us help the community grow even bigger, you can go over to our merch store right there at the QR code on your screen or down in the description below this episode. My name is JJ, one of your co-hosts. Michael is not here with me today, but until next time, guys, same time next week, everybody, please be safe, be kind, and take it easy.